Did you know that spousal support doesn't necessarily have to be paid out every month? Today, Kelly Myers and I are going to be describing creative options to address spousal support in a California divorce. So let me tell you a little bit about me. My name is Laurie Itkin. I'm a certified divorce financial analyst practicing in California. I work on average 50 to 60 cases a year, mostly working with couples in mediation, although some litigation. And I'm either hired as a neutral financial analyst for the couple or working as an advocate for one spouse. And I'd love, Kelly, for you to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about what you do in your practice.
Sure. Well, first of all, Lori, thank you for having me on this with you. I am a divorce and mediation coach. I'm also a co-parenting specialist and a mediator. And a lot of times people, say, well, what do you do as a coach? And really what I do is I kind of serve as a consultant to help people understand, which I think is really important, understand and navigate the divorce process. And essentially my goal with my clients is really to help them use their divorce to build a strong foundation for their future.
That's terrific. So, spousal support is probably one of the most difficult issues to tackle in a divorce. And you have a lot of experience working with both men and women,
Yep.
both payors of support and receivers of support. And what are you hearing from your clients in terms of their fears and their priorities when it comes to this issue?
Well, I think the thing that I hear a lot is the recipient who is fearful because their spouse said, if you divorce me, you're not getting anything. I'm not paying you anything, which of
Mm.
course causes a ton of fear.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you've got other fears around really needing that support to survive and thrive after divorce. Um, the person who pays the support feels like, am I going to have to pay this forever?
Mm.
I don't want to have to pay this forever. And then both parties feeling this feeling of having to be tied to each other, through this payment of support for years or decades. And I think, the one thing that I hear that is always really difficult is that idea of when there is an imbalance in power on the financial front, and that person that has more of that financial power, there's a fear of that person using that as a tool to control the recipient, and that's always a hard one.
Yeah, I've seen that too, where one spouse is relying on that spousal support, and he or she is nervous about rocking the boat. And, because will spousal
Sure.
support not be paid, or will they have to go back to court to
Right.
modify this and fight for it? And I mean, and that's why, we attended recently an advanced mediation training through the Mostyn Guthrie Institute, and we both were really quite pleased to see so many creative ways to address spousal support, some of which we're already familiar with, but there were some new ones for both of us, and that's why we want to do this video. We're really excited to share with you what we learned. Um, so just to back up, if you are going through a divorce or you're contemplating a divorce, typically, let's just talk about a little bit of the nuts and bolts. Typically, there is something called temporary spousal support. This is when your attorney or mediator may use what's called the Disamaster calculator. I use family law software. There's different software products out there, but temporary spousal support is a number that's determined by different factors, such as how much does each party earn, both in wages and income, or maybe self-employment income, or maybe investment income. How much does both each party pay for healthcare insurance, whether or not child support is being paid. Those are all factors, but that can only be used, that calculator, for temporary spousal support, which is typically when the divorce is pending. It is not to be used as a final settlement number. Often it's used as a tool and a guideline. So the one thing I think, Kelly, you and I both really realized is that we, at our training, we realized that if your client goes to a judge to make the decision on spousal support, it's a total crapshoot.
It really is. I will say that when it comes to litigating anything with your divorce, it is a crapshoot. So many people want to rely upon fair, or what the law says. And I always say fair is different no matter who you talk to, or depending upon the day. Your spouse may be happy with you or not happy with you. And so their fair meter will change. And the law is very different too. The law it's written in books, right? But it's interpreted by people.
Right. And I encourage everybody watching this to Google the 4320 factors, California Spousal Support 4320, and you will see what Kelly's talking about, a laundry list of factors that a court would consider: the ability to pay support, the need to receive support, the age and health of the parties, the earning potential of the parties. And you know what? I've read these so many times, and any smart person, 100 smart people could line up and come out with a different decision for the same couple.
Absolutely. And you've seen it just as well as I have. You see a couple with very similar financial situations, almost identical situations across the board, but the outcome is very different. And that is dependent upon the judge they had, who interpreted things differently, has different biases brought into the courts, different attorneys. So the more you can stay out of court and maintain that control to create a way to restructure your family and your financial health, keep maintaining that control is really best, and you can do that really well in mediation.
Absolutely. You can also do that if you're working with attorneys that are really collaboratively trained. Absolutely. And really want to help, or settlement minded. Let's talk about just some of these. We're talking about some of these spousal support creative options. I mean, we all know the regular one, the standard one. Payor has to pay X $1,000s a month indefinitely until some circumstances changed and it can be modified. So typically spousal support can be modified. There's really 3 items. It's really the amount of the support, the duration of the support, how long it's paid, and the terms for when it can be modified up, modified down, eliminated. And so the most popular, I mean, I wouldn't say popular, I think the most common we see is that there's a divorce, and if it's a long-term marriage, spousal support is paid on a monthly basis and a certain amount. Maybe there's a bonus income, extra percentage that's negotiated, but that's the standard. The one that I most commonly see, because you mentioned, Kelly, people are fearful of having to be attached to each other for 5, 10, 20 years, is a lump sum spousal support buyout. And so that's very common, where you just give, if there's enough assets, you pay that money in advance. That's the most common. The second one that is, I see a lot in mediation, because is a combination where it's a partial lump sum, but you also get a smaller amount of monthly payments. Right. In your work, how do you think that might jive if this was something that you might suggest to some of your clients?
Well, I think that's maybe a situation in which you've got, maybe the lower income earner that's going to need a few years to get up to speed and needs kind of that extra income every month, that extra support to kind of help make ends meet, but only needs it for a small period of time, right? Only wants to have that tie as long as they need it. So it really gives a lot of flexibility there, and yet still gets a lump sum that can be invested, can also be creating some income there. So I think that that's a really good option for people who in those circumstances feel that would be suitable for them.
And some people want the lump sum because they want to be able to make a down payment on a house, or Absolutely. They want to do whatever with the money. There's also, what I see quite commonly, a step down over time, because let's say the person receiving support has been a stay-at-home parent or only worked part-time. It's going to take them time to become self-supporting. Right. And so you might start by saying, in the first year or two, spousal support's at this level, and then in a few years it drops to this level, and then to this level. You can also, what we learned in the mediation training was that there can be all variations of that Absolutely. Maybe we know that you're going to receive support for 5 years, but the amount could be modifiable if the payer loses a job or right. makes more money or less money, or it can be a fixed amount, and the term could be modifiable, all these options.
Well, the other thing, Lori, that I remember kind of, it was something I learned. I probably kind of knew it, but it really spelled out was that idea of you can have a modifiable amount, but you have a floor and you have a ceiling. So there is some protection, right? A lot of people don't want to miss out on if the payer, has, income that there's an opportunity or some real growth there, right? And you don't want to miss out on that growth because you've been married a long time and you were part of, supporting that spouse to get to where they were. But you don't want it to be so modifiable that you can't be sure of what you're going to
And
get.
that's what the floor would be.
Exactly.
And we often see that because it's for another topic, but there's something called the lifestyle of the marriage. And that's where you get into these caps and floors. And because things aren't always black and white, but I love the cap and floor. I love that idea. So I think if you are in mediation or even just negotiating with your spouse without any help, who knows what you're doing, you really want to work with a CDFA, a certified divorce financial analyst, whether it's me or one of my colleagues. There's a bunch of us around. Many of us are really good. And we would help you model. What does this mean? So Kelly, if you were my client and you were thinking of, should I just take, a $300,000 buyout and not have spousal support? I would help you model financially. What does this mean to you? What do you need to do to that money so that at the end of the day, you're not running out of money? And what are the risks if you accept monthly support and a spouse has a heart attack and can no longer pay support?
Exactly.
Or what if you move in with somebody? If you cohabitate with somebody, the payer can say, well, your needs are less. So,
Well, and if I can also add, the beauty of working with someone like you, Lori, is that really support is just one piece of the puzzle. That the financial picture is just that, a picture, and each one of these things is a piece of the puzzle that completes the picture. And so support is one thing, but working with somebody like Laurie to understand, well, so what is your retirement going to look like? What other assets do you have, and what role does that support piece play in your entire financial picture? Too often people look at each one of these things as separate entities, and it really is part of a bigger puzzle. And that's why it's so important, because you may make a decision on support that actually doesn't serve you. You may fight for a support that you really don't need because you didn't understand what the whole financial picture looks like. And what we don't want you to do is waste time fighting for something, that you really may not need in the end.
very well stated. And why I often refer clients or prospective clients to a certified divorce coach like Kelly is because before you can even start digesting some of these financial issues, you need a strategy. You need to put all the divorce ecosystem components in an understandable, digestible way and deal with family, deal with communication with your children, with your spouse. So it's not the financial piece that can be dealt with alone. You really need a certified divorce coach who can put the whole ecosystem together for you and help you make smart decisions. And that's why many of our clients work with both of us. So anyway, we wanted to keep this to about 10 minutes. We probably went a little over, but I hope that gave you some insight into how creative you can be with spousal support. And I will include our contact information below the video. But in the meantime, the best way to reach me is through my website, theoptionslady.com. I'm the Options Lady. And Kelly, what's the best way to reach you?
My website is Your Divorce Advocate. And although I want to be your advocate, more importantly, I want you to be your own advocate in this process. So if you go to my website, you can schedule a free 30-minute consultation with me, and we can walk through what your situation is, and I can give you some ideas, at least on where you can go from where you're at.
Wonderful. Well, we hope you enjoyed this, and we look forward to hearing from you.